Gibson, last week I think you traveled to Curacao to meet with the Consul General of China to discuss further the Pearl of China project. Can you give us an update on that and the donations Pearl of China promised to St. Martin, such as solar panels, some materials to schools, for example, Charlotte Brookson? And as I continue in the same direction with you concerning your trip to Curacao, um, during the depths of monies that was owed to St. Martin, how much exactly was owed to St. Martin and how much did we receive?
Um, the last question you might have to clarify for me. I'm not certain what debts you're talking about.
The monies that were owed to St. Martin when they dismantling, St. Martin was
Okay.
due some money.
Yes.
How much was due to St. Martin and how much exactly did we get?
Yes. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, radio listeners, TV viewers. To reply to the question in terms of the visit I had to Curacao, the Prime Minister as well as myself were invited to a lunch extended by the Council for China in Willemstad. It was more a getting acquaintance kind of lunch. The Prime Minister could not make it, so I went alone. The lunch was quite pleasant. It was like a 6-7 course lunch, small, and we spoke about many issues, also about the project, about the Constitution, about the authorities that government have, those kind of things we embarked upon during the discussions at the lunch. A letter was sent by the Prime Minister to the Chinese government expressing that we welcome the entire project, Pearl of China, and that we're moving forward to see how we can accommodate all the needs that there are to get the project off the ground. So we spoke about that letter also. That's in general the areas of discussion. Like I said, it was a getting acquaintance kind of a lunch that they had invited us to attend. It's probably within the Chinese culture to do that, and we complied. As far as the project is concerned, it is being vetted by VROMI. You have to work with engineers and architects, and you've got to work with calculations for strengths in the building here and there, and that has a sort of a go back and come back kind of activity to get the structure right, given the location and given the requirements for according to the building code. So that's something that's in process, and I cannot give a timeline on when that would be completed, but the original intention was for the project to start in March, if all goes well. There's no reason at this point in time to deviate from that original projection. To address your second question, how much money we were supposed to get for the settlement of the assets of the Netherlands Antilles. The amount was approximately 60 million. But that's not all. There are one or two items that also has to be divided that did not form part of the original division process. And one of them was a company called SAO, Social Economic Development Organization, that lended money to government-owned companies. That foundation is dormant. It has a balance sheet, and there's substantial money in that balance sheet, and St. Martin's share of that company is being projected to be about 7 million. So altogether, it's 60 million plus 7 million, that's 67 million. And we have not received any money so far. The discussions are still ongoing. There was supposed to be a video conference yesterday between the three countries, Holland, Curacao, and St. Martin. That it was postponed until next week, I believe, because of somebody being unable to attend. But those discussions are nearing its end, and hopefully can be concluded very shortly.
Thank you, Minister Gibson. I think I have another question.
Well, if you would listen quite tentatively to what the minister just said, to answer your second question. So this would be your third.
That I'm well aware of.
Okay, very good.
Minister Lee, as you spoke about the hospital, there's something that rang a bell in my ear. Open and transparency. Those are your words. Based on the verdict delivered by the court, there were documents, for example, the contract signed with INZO not turned over to VAMID. Why was that? Can you tell us if you know?
I can't really answer that because this is a court case against SZV. SZV has their own legal counsel. SZV has their own legal strategy. So I'm not exactly clear which documents they asked for and what the reasoning of SZV was in terms of not replying. But BB, I can say that, you know, if you look at the judgment of the court, that basically one of the things that SZV, let's say, got punished for was providing insufficient insight into the price difference. So I think SZV obviously took a legal strategy of you know, what you have legal access to. I mean, information's one thing. Yes, you can be transparent, but if I want to see your tax return, you're not obligated to give it to me. So there's some things that people have a privacy right to. For a construction process, for example, companies, when they submit their bids, their prices, they have proprietary competitive numbers. So for example, if INSO was asked to just provide their quotation, their backup, these people compete against each other in other destinations around the world. So they would then have, let's say, an unfair advantage knowing the price breakdown, the price structure for a competitor. So, but I'm not privy to exactly what information was requested and how it was requested and what was submitted. So, but of course, in the interest of the country, you know, what's appropriately transparent, it should be and is.
Thank you very much for your questions, Bibi. Let's go to Mr. Andrew Dick, the Daily Herald. He has the floor.
Morning, ministers. Minister Emmanuel, concerning the Wayman Hill, some residents sent some pictures to us at the newspaper concerning the state. Some cables were actually visible from underground cables. Is there anything being done as far as the ministry is concerned?
Well, as we speak right now, the first part of Wayman Hill is to be paved. I know that between government and the stakeholders and the private owners, they have come together and they started all the drawings and they started all the road separation and all the metal plates, you know, to go down so that they can start to pave one side, and that's coming down. However, at the bottom part of Wayman Hill, that road, it's actually a private road, and they're still in discussions with the landowners, with the family that owns the part at the entrance of Wayman Hill. And I was an advocate that said, even though it's a private road, it's not private citizens that live there, so the road should be paved regardless, because the condition that the road is in now is very dangerous. You know, it's basically breaking away because of the number of rains that we have had lately. The trench need to be completed. And again, I know the individuals that are responsible for Road Network, Tony Cheboncamp and his whole crew with Kurt Rohan, they are very busy dealing with that problem right now. And that's what we have in St. Martin many of times, is that land are sold and there is no access or entrance to many people reaching their property because of family dispute. And that's the issue that they're having right now with Wayman Hill and the road. Not that it's a family dispute, but families need to be contacted. Families need to be sat down and have a discussion with how they're going to go forward. You can't just go and just do what you want with one's property. And that's the problem right now with Wayman Hill. But I know because I spoke to stakeholders this morning, some of the Carties this morning, and coming down from Valley Estate, that part coming down right now, basically in the next couple of days, that part will be cemented and paved.
Okay, now Minister, also you mentioned Back Street. Now, there was an initial plan from the Ministry of TIAT to actually do the beautification of Back Street. Front Street was already done, Back Street was next. However, there was the project was stalled because the harbor still had to finalize something. So VROMI did temporary repairs. My question is now, what's your approach to Back Street? Will it continue being a project from TIAT, or will VROMI continue beautifying?
Well, it's not necessarily a project from TIAT, like the Minister of Health, Emily, made mention a while ago. We have situations in our community where one aspect of one ministry and the other would overlap. And what needs to be had is a discussion. How are we going to move forward solving this issue? The pre-financing for Back Street have already been done, by the harbor and government, and the Minister of Finance can elaborate on it. Government is also responsible. My approach to the whole situation is that the quick fixes is what's costing us even more. And it's not working, in my opinion. Clearly, you can see the condition of Back Street. There have been temporary fixes. And why it have not been done, I said, because of the season, which have just started right now. But I know that it is a project because I spoke to the whole body responsible down at the VROMI department, and they are very concerned about it. Again, should we go and just remove the bricks, pack it with sand, level it off, and put back the bricks? But then underneath, the connection of the sewage pipes are not connected. So what you're going to get is the water running, the bricks shifting, and then Carnival is right around the corner. And then you're going to get these big trucks coming with their music and their juve and then jump here. And when it stick and the truck moving back and forth and everybody jumping, the bricks down there is moving. The sand is shifting. What you're going to get 2 and 3 months down the line? Big holes in the road, bricks all over the place, patches need to be done. Again, I am saying, in collaboration with TIAT, in collaboration with the whole government, we need to sit down and decide how we're going to tackle and fix Phillipsburg. Not just Front Street, not just Back Street, Phillipsburg. What's the approach? Because again, clearly, the old approach is not working anymore. We need to decide, and also with the community, with the council, with the Phillipsburg Council, give us how are we going to fix it once and for all, because everybody would have to be involved. Everybody would have to have monies and an input in how are we going to fix Phillipsburg.
Andrew, thank you very much for your questions. Alita Singh, Daily Herald, you have the floor momentarily. Let's just get this microphone.
Thank you, Cedric. Good morning, Ministers. Minister Gibson, can you please give an update on the low-corresponding banking? I know, I believe in November of last year, you said there was an agreement with the State Department, and one of the factors it hinged on is the fact that the Dutch government had to give a guarantee. They weren't very happy with the State or Central Bank. Has anything changed?
Just to put it in its correct perspective, there was no guarantee that was asked for by the State Department as far as the Netherlands is concerned. What it was, the State Department says that they wanted to use St. Martin and Jamaica as an example to the world as far as compliance is concerned, because they have had quite some work done already. But in order to do so with the Dutch Antilles, which are part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, they wanted the Netherlands on board to form part and parcel of the entire exercise. Nothing has changed since November when I reported this. We're still in the same position, that the Netherlands have not agreed to be part of the process, and it's stuck at that point. Perhaps I should share with you that next month, the Minister of Kingdom Affairs of the Netherlands, of the Kingdom, will be visiting St. Martin, and of course that item will also be on the agenda.
The Audit Chamber last week issued a statement on the financials of 2015, and one of the things it said is that government needs to be on time, they need to get their accounts in order. Of course, September is the due date for 2016. How on time, or how do you think you're going to make that deadline and probably erase what's been happening in the past years, getting your financial statements on time and giving the Audit Chamber all the information it requires?
Well, just to be clear, the Audit Chamber expressed their opinion on the financial statements for 2015. I wasn't there yet. I was there in 2016. However, 2016, very little could be done as far as financial management is concerned, simply because it lasted until about April before we could get the budget balance and concentrating on all the things that need to be done to keep it balanced in 2016. 2017 is where hopefully we will see change, because already I've met with my people and have referred them to the report from the Audit Chamber, and informed them that I don't want to get such a letter on my watch, and that everything needs to be done to improve financial management to a point that at least we could show improvement compared to years gone by. And it's very simple. If you're preparing financial statements, its basis should be numbers that you can rely on and that are accurate. The accuracy of those numbers determines the quality of the report, and we need to get to a point where we can get audited reports that are approved by auditors and no longer reference to numbers that nobody is certain about.
In that same report, the Audit Chamber also mentioned that there's been a decline, a chronic decline in the collections for work permits and residency permits. Have you seen those numbers reflected, and what do you intend to do about it, or what have you already done about it?
Well, if you notice that has to do with, I think, TIAT and justice. You need to put that question there, because I cannot go into those departments and do something about it. But in general, the Council of Ministers have talked about it, and it's a question of one step at a time, getting one tree healthy in a forest that has been sick, and try to continue curing each tree until you can have a healthy forest.
Thank you very much.
Alida, thank you very much for your questions. Stephen Cerillion, PJD2 Radio, you now have the floor.
Good morning. My question is directed at the Minister of Finance, Richard Gibson. Minister, during the budget presentation back in 2016, you made mention the idea of establishing a National Development Bank on St. Martin. Are those plans still in motion?
Very much so. I think with the Minister of Romy had taken the initiative as a member of Parliament at the time, filed to have the development bank formed, and recently the SER issued its report relative to what it thinks about the development bank, and we are committed to proceed and have that development bank formed. I will also mention that in discussions with Parliament during the 2017 budget, the desire has been expressed, and it was also our plans to do so. I think I'd mentioned that in 2016, to embark on a process, a plan, to have funds that are held by people abroad without asking questions returned to St. Martin to be part of our economy. Those funds, the idea is that they pay a reduced amount to repatriate those funds to St. Martin, as well as the legal minds are looking into to require, as an added incentive, that they invest part of those funds in the development bank, and in that manner create the capital that's going to be needed to have the development bank function and grow the economy on St. Martin.
Minister of Rome Christopher Emmanuel, you recently expressed disgust with the number of stray dogs in the Phillipsburg area, in particular on the beaches. You mentioned that you were going to have a sick discussion with the Minister of VSA in particular to address that situation. Where are you at now in handling the stray dog situation?
Still in the discussion phase with the Minister of Health. He also expressed concerns about it. And it's mainly due to the condition of our beaches and the state that they're in, especially in the Phillipsburg area. And then I had a discussion with a doctor, and the doctor told me, do you know that the feces from dogs can make children blind? And I told him, well, I didn't know that. He said, yes, it can make children blind, and he was happy to know that a discussion such was taking place. But at the other end, he's also a dog lover. And the question he put, are you going to put them down? I said, I haven't reached to that part in terms of what do we do with the dogs when they're all rounded up, because I know here in St. Martin we have some serious dog lovers. And that will be another discussion we'll be having all over Facebook and the newspapers. Look what they're doing to all the dogs. But what I'm saying to residents, though, and I'm saying to people that own these dogs, put them on a leash. Put them on a leash and tie them in your yard. Because, you know what I ask people to do? Each and every one, walk Phillipsburg Beach. Not when there are ships in. Not when there are people on the beach from the cruise ships. Take a Sunday when there are no ships in, and you walk the beach. And tell me what you think about the condition of Phillipsburg Beach. And then when you come back here in the next press briefing, you ask me a different question. And you would understand the urgency and the seriousness why this particular issue need to be tackled.
Thank you. My last question is directed to the Minister of VSA, Mr. Lee. Labor reform has been a sticking point for quite some time now. In fact, the Chair Lady of Parliament is looking forward to discussing this in Parliament, providing that your ministry handles it as soon as possible. How soon do you intend to present such a document to the floor of Parliament?
Thanks. First, just a note to my colleague minister. I am a dog lover as well. I walk my dogs every afternoon. As a matter of fact, that's probably the best time to get me on my phone. But actually, the regulation of domestic animals falls under TIOT, and I support the review of the policies in terms of how people manage their pets. But that actually does fall under TIOT, so just so we're sort of clear. But again, as we talked about before, there is this cross-border implication across ministries and why we can't think in silos. So there's a health aspect to it, and there's the the policy aspect to it. So again, these things all do go cross borders. Stephen, to answer your question, the proposal for addressing the abuse of the 6 months contracts or short-term labor contracts, if you remember, has already been submitted to Parliament. As a matter of fact, there was already, I think, 1 or 2 meetings with Parliament, and then the elections came and nothing happened. So just as a refresher, there is a proposal for changes to the Civil Code, as well as a consensus document that was agreed upon by all of the stakeholders, so that's unions, business, and government, as to a framework for labor reform. And that's something I'm very proud of, that we have full support of all of the participants. And so that will lay out, so once we go through Parliament, even now already, that is serving as a legislative framework for the department to start working on how we'll adjust the policies to reflect what is in that consensus document.
Stephen, thank you very much for your questions in this round. Members of the media, the Minister of Romy had to attend a 11 o'clock meeting. That's the reason why he's no longer available for further questioning. Let's start our second round of questions. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Cedric. Minister Lee, I will continue on the same health topic that you were talking about on the hospital, on USZV. You mentioned that USZV is spending a lot of money on referrals to other hospitals overseas. Can you or do you have the amount of money that USZV is spending on consultants, and are you at all concerned about this?
That's not a number that I have handy. Look, in general, the use of consultants, there's a function for it. For example, as we're looking at national health insurance, we're working together with actuaries to look at the numbers in terms of how we generate what premiums need to be in order to make sure that everything's sustainable. That's not an in-house skill set that most companies would have. So using consultants is necessary when correct. So the question is if there's any abuse of it. And these are topics that, as we're going through our discussions with departments and SZV, that we'll bring up. I mean, ultimately, one of the questions for SZV is, what is their operational cost as a percentage of their total revenues, right? So that's the easiest way to look at the number, is to make sure that their operational costs fit industry benchmarks. I mean, there are other administrative organizations, and you look at what your administrative costs are as a percentage and make sure that it's in line, and then we'll get into a bigger discussion about, how do we make sure that you're being efficient with your costs.